Hello? Are we live? Hello. Charles here. Thank you for joining us during all the weather and the wildness of Madrid and Barcelona. We're here today speaking at the Web3 Summit with, I think, like the most illustrious crew of voices amongst platforms and marketplaces and a higher vision of what's going on in Web3. I'm going to give introductions, I was told, to move us along more quickly. I'm Charles. I work at Foundation in the Partnerships and Artist Relations Department. I've been in indie music for the last decade or so, working at Warp Records and helping Boiler Room come over to North America originally. I'm based out in New York. I'm joined by Eric, who is working at OpenSea after a lot of experience in the music industry, early team at Spotify, and working with artists and partnership label relations. He's been at Mint Songs in the Web3 space, artist management, consultation across the board, and Clayton, who is at the wonderful Audius, which is music streaming's answer to Web3, a completely on-chain streaming environment and economy of wonderful music. After he's worked with Skrillex, founding Owsla and the label and publishing arm of their business, as well as doing radio charting, artist management, and music publicity. And Kat, who comes from Zora, and has been head of product there after a bunch of amazing experience in SoundCloud, Ableton, and Gemma. Yeah, we're all here today to speak to you about, I think, a lot of the challenges, past, and experience we've had working in the wild world of marketplaces and platforms across the space. I think the first place we wanted to start off was just by thinking about where we've been offering media and music specifically. I think lots of different range within all the voices here, but if someone feels like speaking to their company's lean or angle on how you have seen Web3 and your kind of space support media, music, beyond.
Sure, I'll happily jump in. I think the short answer for us is that we tend to try to not think about Audius as a Web3 company. That perception has been, I think, pretty well conveyed through all of our channels and through the comms. But it also cuts two ways because many people don't, as a result, many people don't consider us a Web3 company. We kind of, so, you know, I like to say that we have the luxury of being a music company in macro environments like the one we're in, which is cool. There's 6.5 million people using Audius every month, and I think probably none of them really think about the fact that they have a crypto wallet, proprietary crypto wallet attached to their account for the vast majority of those folks. So yeah, we think about it as maybe Web 2.5 is a little bit more accurate, and our number one focus is on approachability and like nativity. Like if it has to feel like, I think the broad product perspective for Audius is that if it feels like a Web3 product, then we need to make it a lot more user-friendly. And so we've onboarded, yeah, over 100,000 artists now to the platform as such.
Amazing.
Yeah, I can jump in. So yeah, I'm head of product at Zora, and the way that we think about product at Zora is that we build tools to bring creativity on chain. So any kind of creativity and any kind of media that's related to your creative practice. So we don't specifically focus on music, but we definitely support a lot of musicians, especially bringing lots of the media around their musical works on chain. And that's kind of how we're approaching it at the moment.
Yeah, I think similarly with OpenSea, you know, we're not specifically a music company, but we support the entire ecosystem, right? So we're, I would say, maybe the default secondary marketplace. We've played a role in making sure that the space is as safe and as trustworthy as possible for people to interact with NFTs, whether that's buying or selling, or looking into the future, maybe developing more tool sets for creators and for collectors to interact with, you know, the experiences or the utility that are attached to what NFTs are. And you know, I think from the music and media perspective, really highly focused on developing those really compelling partnerships that will help scale models that will work into the future. So things like some of the larger corporate partnerships that we're looking at, but also developing tool sets for the long tail of creators and artists as well. So.
Beautiful. Yeah, at Foundation, we've tried to find that balance between making sure that everyone's invited, and I think the Web3 kind of offering is something that you got to know a guy to know a guy, sort of insider trading at its beginning, and making sure we're bridging an all-inclusive experience. It's been started mostly with visual art, but like, as we're saying, very connective to lots of different sides of like tokenizing communities and making sure that whether you are in Bangladesh making like an anime practice or working in America as a photographer, there's like an interplay and something to be done for everyone. I'm curious like how you guys have thought about bridging those gaps between media makers and be it music or otherwise now, how you guys are feeling. You're speaking about maybe a strategy of Web 2.5. Where's your like kind of growth and expansion into the creative community now being focused? Everyone, feel free to answer. Sorry, I'm not going to call on anyone.
I'll let somebody else go first this time.
I think specifically around growth and how we drive adoption in the space. I think the elephant in the room is that Web3 can be intimidating. There's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of technical barriers to entry. So what we're highly focused on, as well as a lot of other platforms right now, is how do we reduce those barriers, really focus on delivering that ideal fan experience or that ideal collector experience rather than the focus on the technology itself, right? So I think a good analogy maybe is when MP3s were developed, artists didn't go around and say, hey fans, I'm dropping an MP3, right? Like, isn't that exciting that I have an MP3? It's just their music, it's the art that should be at the forefront, and the technology should be abstracted into the background. So things that we're doing are as simple as making onboarding with a wallet simpler, paying with a credit card, fiat, overcoming kind of all of the constraints around legal requirements in that space. So hyper focused on building those on-ramps for the kind of average person to enter the space. We call it the grandma test. If your grandma can come in and purchase an NFT and have an experience that feels very intuitive and as simple as e-commerce, then I think we're on the right track.
Nice.
Yeah, I think at Zora, we have a very like crypto native audience, I would say, and like a lot of the artists who are in and around Zora and in our ecosystem are already like very into crypto, and like the barriers of like getting a wallet are like not quite there at the moment. But like what we really focus on and what we've been really focused on for the last year is making the minting experience incredible, and that is like how we've been able to bring a lot of artists and bring a lot of like their work on chain is by really simplifying that minting experience for them, and it's something that we think a lot about. And then on the other side of it as well, trying to think about this collector experience with primary mints is like something that we're spending a lot of time on at the moment. We released a feed at the beginning of the year, which allows you to explore everything that's being minted on Ethereum. That was really part of our efforts to bring more of an audience to creators' work as well.
Nice.
I think that for audience growth looks like a lot less so a numerical value, like a number of users and things like that, at least in the immediate future. I think we're really doubling down on our emphasis in terms of creating value within the relationship between fans and artists. So I think in the next year and a half, I'm a little bit less concerned about getting the next 2.5 million artists on Audius as I am getting the ones that are already on Audius that are actively using it paid. And delivering an elevated consumption experience for their fans, and helping them kind of build these communities around fandom that used to exist before everything became. I mean, those relationships basically became obliterated by the current streaming paradigm. So I think that I'm really just trying to grow the revenue that artists are receiving through the platform, through these new channels that we're creating and that we plan to launch imminently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there was a moment in the last 2 years, certainly, a lot of hype, a lot of immersion, and in that mix, it seemed like something for everyone, or maybe anyone could do it. And then now, like in the, I guess the pressure testing of that, you have people from certain scenes who stick with it and people who fall away. And this bear market or kind of like dip in that I don't know, all-encompassing exuberance is like a question for everyone. At Foundation, we definitely are sensing that there is just something of a hurdle or an obstacle in letting people know it's still available. I think people, you know, a lot of people closed the door on Web3 in the last year or so, thinking like, oh, I tried it, or oh, I'm interested. But I like what you guys are all speaking about, like raising that value for the folks that are here, because it is still going, like it's not going away. Especially for music and media at large, I think fallen into this trope of maybe youth specifically, like new voices coming into the space. If you're looking for potential, a future career, there's like either an investment in social media or an investment in Web3 as like probably the two most likely places for you to form a career. I'm just conscious, you guys probably have had experiences. What do you think of some of the challenges, or like what are the latest kind of like feelings in the artists and the media communities within your platforms?
I think that one of I think it's really exciting. I mean, I don't want to be the guy that's like, that's just being kind of contrarian, but these moments are really exciting because we do get to like kind of zoom out and see who actually, like who this actually is for and who it appeals to. And I think what you mentioned is really accurate. It's like yeah, the hype cycle was great. It got us, I mean, it capitalized all of the companies that we work for. It really helped kind of, you know, broaden consciousness about this technology to, you know, like grandmothers, for example. But I think that what we're going to see, and what I think that's already happening on Audius, is that like a lot of the people that are using these products it's because it's their first streaming, it's their first like streaming platform, or it's like their first user-generated content sharing platform. Like I was talking to somebody at Doodles, and he was mentioning that we were talking about just, you know, API, like an API partnership with Audius, and he was mentioning that like all the music would have to be free of swear words, because they've found through feedback that almost all of their holders are you know, interacting with the IP with their children. And so I think it's, you know, I don't think Roblox, when they were growing, was really worried about getting all of the you know, like the people who played Quake when they were 19 to you know, kind of transport over. Like these new audiences are always being created and are always coming up. I think it's very likely that we're in a time right now where people are going to have their first crypto wallet before they have their first bank account. So I just want to be that first interaction with music on chain for, you know, the kid that's like just kind of curious about these kinds of things. And I think that this moment, in terms of the market, is like, that's one of the most exciting things to me, because these, you know, 14-year-old kids aren't necessarily worried about like financial primitives or like their, you know, their 401k. They just want something that works and that is fun, where they can connect with their friends. Every app is a dating app, you know, so like, you know, having those social interactions, I think is ultimately the value that we're trying to provide for these people around music and shared storytelling.
Yeah, I think, you know, like obviously artists are feeling the pain of market conditions, and I don't think that's like specific to crypto. It's just like people have less money to spend on luxury items, and like art is luxury. And I think like when you're talking about this kind of social aspect to it, like something that I'm always thinking about at Zora is like, yeah, like Ethereum is a social network. You're creating these relationships between your collectors and creators, and like how do we make that experience feel great, like alongside, you know, like how is it better than posting on social media? Like what's special about minting on chain that's separate from social media and like can add something of value to you? And that's just really kind of the space that I'm always kind of exploring in product at the moment and thinking about. You know, you can post it on Instagram for free and not make any money from it. You might as well put it on chain and see if you find another audience and see if you can make some ETH from it at the same time. The worst thing that can happen is you have on-chain provenance of your artwork and nobody bought it. Like, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world to happen.
You know, I'm a big supporter of that. I think there's a bit of like, why not try it? That a lot of people are still seeing a bit of tunnel vision or blinders on. But yeah, as a space offering lots of opportunity, really there's no pain in it. And I think we've gotten over that initial sort of bad words or something like the kind of limitation on people seeing it just as like an ongoing process or part of your career.
I love your use of the word luxury too, because I've mentioned that like I think of Ethereum as a luxury brand now, the same way that like I think about Louis Vuitton or Prada or something, right? And there's something that's timeless about that, and I think that we're going to continue to see that. I think in a multi-chain world, there's still going to be like that. That feels like more. I was just in Paris and walking around like. You wouldn't know that there's looming global financial issues by the amount of people that are still buying fucking Bottega Veneta duffel bags for fucking $5,000. You know what I'm saying? So I think as like the market becomes kind of like this behavior becomes normalized, we're gonna just see it's going to kind of just even out as such.
And I would echo what Clayton said about where the market is it's actually been a blessing in some ways because it's cleared out the space, and it's allowed us to, at least myself, to focus in on the partners that are there and that are serious and are looking to build something, for the long run, new models that are going to work sustainably. If we just kept doing what we were doing when the market was hot, we'd just keep pumping out PFPs, and frankly, it's a little bit lazy, right? If it keeps working, then we're just going to keep selling PFPs, and I think we all would like to see Web3 and NFTs evolve to a place where it becomes this really elegant infrastructure layer to experiences that are built, as part of every part of our daily lives. And, whether that's a loyalty program or it's something that integrates with media rights or royalties or those types of elements, I think the only way to get there is to pressure test the space and to build towards something for the long term and not just, keep making money selling PFPs.
We've spoken about some of the challenges of media makers and creators, but I think you're bringing up like the challenges of the marketplaces and the systems that we're working within. I'm just interested, I think they can be separate topics. How are you guys like building now? I know bear market is a building market, we say. There's lots going on. If there's not as many people knocking down your door with new sales, or how are you guys focusing as companies?
Zora shipping. We're shipping all the time. It's actually been a really exciting year. I think I joined just as the market crashed, I think last year. So I've only known building in this bear market, but I still find it extremely thrilling. And I think in some ways it's there's less, from speaking to my colleagues anyway, it seems like there's less noise and a lot more signal and a lot more visionary thinking about what the next cycle is going to bring and how to be prepared for that. Which is a really exciting headspace to be in, and I guess you're trying to predict the future, what's going to matter to creators next time around. We had this amazing explosion of interest in Web3 NFTs. So what's going to be the meta next time around? What's going to be the I think it's really interesting, and we just keep building stuff and seeing what resonates with creators and collectors, and it's a good time for building. So
yeah, Clayton, I know you guys are working quite often launching new partnerships or new initiatives. How are you guys sensing?
Yeah, our number one goal at this point, as I mentioned, is just to get people paid, primarily rights holders, right? I think that there was a certain amount of I don't know. I think the perception of Audius out of the gate was this, extremely disruptive, fast-moving. Bull in a China shop kind of garage startup, which I think is accurate to a certain degree, but the DNA of what we do and the DNA of my career previously in music, I have only ever managed homeless people. It's the only thing that I care about is making musicians paid. And so we're in the midst of launching a suite of products to help us do that. And I shouldn't say artists either, because that's not necessarily representative of, I think, the vast majority of people making music anymore. I should say rights holders. The major labels. I was saying this to somebody else. I think it was Rayhan, who was on a former panel. But the experience of working with major labels has, over the last 5 years, become extremely pleasant, for lack of a better term. I never thought I would say this, but they are moving faster. They're more understanding of the needs of creators. They see the creator economy eating their lunch right now. I think it's now more than a third of the 100,000 songs that are uploaded to Spotify I think it's more than half actually, of the 100,000 songs that are uploaded to Spotify every day are by independent creators through DIY distribution channels like DistroKid or whatever. So building tools to help these, the rights holders of larger catalogs, as well as these people that are generally invested in the idea of helping further the human condition through art and storytelling. Those are the people that work at labels, right? Like almost anybody on the business affairs team of Universal could go work in a hedge fund. But everybody that you meet in these institutions is aligned around the idea of helping artists and creating great music. And so we want to build the tools. Not only we've so far built distribution tools that have helped millions of hundreds of thousands of artists reach millions of new listeners. I think that the general consensus around it within the artist community was that was very helpful and a great thing. Now it's time for us to win over the incumbents and to work together to improve a system that I think we all understand is fundamentally fucked up. And again, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. These ideas can't exist in a world where Spotify didn't do what it did. Spotify saved the music industry. It's not to say that it's perfect, and we want to be the next iteration of improvement on this system, and hopefully that's reflected in the ways that people treat each other, the ideas that circulate within the greater cultural zeitgeist. Because music used to do that, and I don't think it does now. And that's I think that has a lot to do with incentives, because honestly, great art doesn't make money generally. So we want to do that.
I like it. I should say that this is an open conversation, so if anyone has questions for anyone else, I think you should go off script. I'm going to ask a question that just has inspired me from your response, but how are you guys collectively thinking, or for anyone that feels like answering, about this distribution system? Because I think whether you come from music where there's distributors piping into services, interacting with labels, we are in a bit of the Wild West when it comes to Web3, how sort of structures or veins and avenues for getting in or working or having these relationships form. Just anyone who has maybe interesting future tellings or maybe day-to-day experiences. I'm curious, within music, I think as well, people are starting to say, like Clayton's echoing, if you want to get a deal done with an artist, coming through their label can often be more fertile than going through the manager, because there's just so much kind of in artists' ears these days, and the creator economy has exploded maybe the systems that can be built around an artist on a team. Just curious how you guys are feeling. Distribution's working. Are you guys doubling down on Web3 sort of management companies? Are you guys sensing there's more individual conversations, and how are you tracking these?
Yeah, we're tracking it in Salesforce now. It's been a big. The CRM overhaul has been really fun.
CRMs are fun.
Yeah. But I think the way that we think about it, or the way I personally think about it, I think this is probably reflected in product eventually. I do work with the product team so closely, but we don't really care about those 100,000 songs that are hitting Spotify every day. It doesn't matter to me, especially with somebody had to say it. Let's talk about AI. There's about to be 250,000, and they're going to be rain sounds that are monetized at the same fucking rate as a 100-person symphony orchestra, right? So we're going to start seeing the differentiation between content, which is just ubiquitous and will forever just be flooding the internet for the rest of time. And then we're also looking at these people that have this visceral, that create art that gives their fans this visceral feeling that makes them want to invest further in the relationship they have with them, whether that's in largely a parasocial relationship. And I think that is actually the future of the distribution, is much more valuable, I don't want to even call it content, much more valuable art to a smaller number of people is how we generally think about this going out. Because we're not going to win the arms race of growth in terms of numbers, or it would be a foolish kind of hill to try to climb right now. We want to double down on the deepening of the relationship as opposed to the broad and increasingly horizontal relationship.
I kind of segment into two buckets, and a similar thought is, I think we all want to see this future where all music is on chain and we have this consumption experience where it's the default mode is powered by Web3, but we're far out from that reality, just because the music industry is messy as it is. Metadata standards are messy. The way that Spotify, Amazon, and Apple deliver royalties to the rights holders is not comparable and compatible rather. So in the short term, we're almost slowing down to speed up, and that's about finding a few models that we can work on and focus on and tell that story to the wider Web3 community that we can then repeat and scale and iterate on. So we do work with the major labels. We have a partnership with Warner Music, and they've been great partners to us. We're working with Sony on a few projects right now as kind of early tests, but then also looking at how we build tools and support the long tail of indie creators and artists as well. But I think to your question about like what's the right approach to start building that pipeline, you kind of need a team that's focused on investing around the artist who has a literacy of Web3. And the impressive thing is that Warner Music and Sony and a few of the other companies have really invested in that team. So there's people over at those companies who know how to set up a project properly, which artists make the most sense, which model we can build together, and then go out and tell that story to the wider ecosystem so that they get inspired and they can build something that is replicable rather than just throwing everything against the wall, no kind of standardization between the different projects, which doesn't really help anyone. It's just, okay, I did something that worked a little bit here, I did something that worked a little bit here, but no one can really kind of take that model and repeat it and grow into something where Web3 is adopted more broadly.
Yeah, we had like 2 partnerships recently that I think were like a really good example of like working with traditional maybe music industry. One was where we worked with Grimes, and she did a mint that was part of her Ultra Music like immersive elf tech experience, and I think it was like 60,000 mints or something like that. It was like huge, and bringing lots of like her fans who are maybe not already kind of in the Web3 space themselves, but like wanted this digital collectible of Grimes, and were like, it was like amazing in Twitter, like seeing these people being like, oh, you just set up a wallet and I'll mint one and send it to you, so you don't even have to like get ETH to do this, and it was really cool. But then I think like another example of something that we've done recently is working with Colors. So we have like a big project coming with Colors soon, and that's like engaging with lots of artists, lots of different kinds of fans, but working, with like a more music-focused company that has a Web3 project. So yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I think also kind of engaged in a lot of these is composability and just the flexibility, which maybe you might not have seen in previous media structures with major film companies kind of signing these super exclusive rights. And something we focus on in Foundation is like, it feels like a moment of experimentation where people are going to try out a bunch of different things. And, there's no reason to get like, I guess, super limited when someone like Drake is doing like an Apple Music show, and that's the only place you can hear his music. It's been a beautiful moment, I think, during this market to see a lot of people try different things, which leads to more distribution and more like, like echoes and games of telephone hearing down the line passing.
I also think, like you said, I think that composability is the key word there. Like, there are some things that are going to work for some artists that aren't going to work for others just because of the nature of the music that they make, right? Again, like going back to the example, it's like I can create a song, like, again, I can make as much money from 30 Seconds of Rain as I can for a song that I worked on for six years, right? So I think that those different consumption experiences and consumption habits are going to dictate the ways that different artists distribute their music. I think that, like, a great example is the fact that, like, I think most people would completely write off terrestrial radio right now in terms of like an important distribution device for recorded music. But I manage an artist who has had 2 #1 singles at Alternative, and now he can sell 3,000 tickets in Tulsa. And that's, if you manage artists, that's very difficult to do. But he fucking, I'm using the F word so much, by the way, I apologize. He hates using social media. And so radio is very taxing. You have to do a lot of shows for free. It's a lot of like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Payroll is still very much a thing. It's not something he wants to participate in, but the thing is that artists in this day and age now have to do they have to go where their audience is, right? And for many artists, that audience will be Audius. For many artists, that will be Zora or OpenSea. Like there's all of these are just tools that will appeal to different people, and I don't like see Audius becoming the only streaming service in the world. Like that would be absurd. Like it's meant to complement the relationship that people have with their fans, like alongside, whatever else.
I think it's so important to acknowledge that, whenever you're thinking about Web3 or any emerging technology, whether it's TikTok, social media, what have you, you really have to think about what feels authentic and genuine with that artist-fan connection first, right? And it's very easy for people who are very excited about Web3 and what it represents to evangelize it and to say, this is the future, it's going to be the solution for everyone and every artist should try it. I think it's good to build a fluency with it, as it grows and as it becomes more prevalent in different aspects of how artists interact with their fans. But it doesn't mean that you should force it down your fans' throat and say, okay, I have an NFT, go out and buy it because I'm doing this, and if you're a real fan, you will do it. It should instead power some type of experience that the fan actually wants. And I think kind of built into that is the idea that a small subset of a fan's audience or an artist's fans or audience is responsible for an outside percentage of their revenue or their value. And being able to understand who those fans are and reward them is a really exciting prospect. So similar to what I worked on at Spotify, where we were pulling the data of listeners on specific artists and offering things like access to tickets or special experiences with the artist, or maybe the ability to buy exclusive merch. You could do something similar, but the artist actually owns that data versus having to use an intermediary like Spotify who owns that data and you have to work through. But yeah, kind of just going back to the idea of like, if an artist doesn't feel like it's the time to experiment with Web3, then that's totally fine. And I think there's a future where it may be a better entry point for them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting things about the market conditions right now is that like the lack of entitlement among people like us ourselves on the stage. Like, we're not to say that we were those that I'm speaking of, but there was a very real attitude of like, get with it or get without it. Like, it's Web3's coming. Like, you're an idiot if you're not participating. It's like, no, like if you're not using what we're building, then that's on us. Like, we need to create a differentiated, largely like vastly improved experience and product. And when we do that, whether it's facilitated by Web3 or not, like that's when you win. Twitter did it before Instagram. Instagram did it before Snap. Snap did it before, TikTok.
Yeah, well said.
That's a good point. I think maybe there's a lot of promise and expectation and offering and opportunity when you think about, oh, I'm going to get involved in Web3, I'm going to begin my career in this new format. What do you think are the most resonant, now that maybe the community and the hype has sort of cooled, what do you think are the most like distilled reasonings for users, creators, collectors, like still sticking with your guys' collective companies? Are you thinking, maybe as Clayton was saying, having a crypto wallet actually isn't the biggest lens or I don't know, bargaining chip in convincing someone to use Audius, or is the fact that maybe these decentralized services and economies, like how do you find nowadays people are reacting and what's selling?
Well, I think there's still a very healthy and vibrant Web3 native market and audience that exists, on all of our platforms, and there are artists who are monetizing in ways that they never could before. I think that's especially true with other media formats. Digital artists, for example, have done very well on OpenSea at the height of the bull market, and this is obviously from last year. I think we paid out something like $1 billion in creator fees to creators, which is, it's astounding. And that number isn't holding up today, but hopefully with the next cycle we can get back to that type of scale. The other thing I'll say is, the models that hopefully we can develop over the next few months, especially in this time when there's a lot of serious corporate partners and artists who are entering and testing new things, is one where Web3 can be this very easy, low barrier tool set for artists to build a loyalty program, right? And I think if you can develop that in the right way, offer something to a fan that they couldn't get otherwise, then you can compel them to interact with the technology. And I think OpenSea is this, it's doing a lot of really cool things. It's developing new products, but also it's this, sandbox for experimentation of these types of projects that, frankly, other companies aren't willing to do because they're risk averse to things in Web3. Some of the streaming platforms were really excited about exploring Web3 and have since become more conservative with the market, and a number of other larger corporate partners, we've seen that as well. The other exciting thing is, on the flip side, a lot of corporate partners, or corporate companies rather, are building teams, building infrastructure, building their programs in the background, but you can't really see it on the surface level. So, across major brands, some of them have gone public, some of them haven't yet, but the fact that Starbucks and Mercedes-Benz and Porsche are all doing projects and many more to come, I think is an exciting thing. And they understand the value of the technology. It's just when is the right time to deploy it and to create an experience that's actually going to be compelling to their consumers.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between this and the last down market. I started working on the idea of music, of like decentralized streaming back in 2017, 2018. And that project was, it was a thought experiment at this point. But Audius was, spun up shortly, like right around the same time, just in stealth. But I watched what happened back then, like the tour, like there wasn't, I was consulting for WME a lot. I was having meetings with like the biggest management companies, 360, Red Light, all of them, talking to all the major labels, just people in my immediate network. And there was interest, there wasn't full buy-in. And then as soon as the market crashed, it went to, like, those conversations went ice cold. Like it was a laughable prospect. And that's the difference between this one. Like Warner Music has just recently hired, a head of innovation that's focused on Web3. That's happening across all these major companies. Nike acquired Artifact. Like that was insane. Like that was an insane. I'm not even excited by it because I don't technically believe a decentralized company should be able to be acquired. But that's my own personal view on that. Like the interest hasn't waned at like the corporate level in a way that I think is so deeply encouraging. I can't name like a nascent or emerging technology that's gotten to this stage that didn't stick around. By the time that like Starbucks is creating a Twitter account, that's a pretty good indicator that it's going to be around. I can't think of an example of anybody that's put the genie in the bottle from this point, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It feels like it's not going to go away. It's like part of artistic practice across the board. Like seeing minting as like part of the process as well as like sharing to social media or like doing other things with it, I think is not going to go away. And also, like the monetary aspect of it and being able to get creators paid and the promise of that and like seeing that delivered like in the last couple of years. I don't think that concept is going to go away for creators or collectors, that will exist, maybe just in a different format in the future.
Yeah, it's a beautiful practice, I think, at base, just really as a opening, I think, for people who didn't feel that their value maybe in their media was greater than likes or some sort of just social mechanism. Like now, that social mechanism is on full blast. I think lots of people are looking at the space, so you're already getting like this lift naturally from being involved, besides sharing it with your family or friends. And then the economic incentives are openings, and then beyond, I think like the long-term ramifications are like really unclear, but
I think the exciting part about this next run, and by run I don't necessarily mean price or volume or anything, I just mean like the attention around the space and what's happening at a broader level in terms of tech, is like we've established the what in this last one. Like over the last couple of years, people know what an NFT is. Grandma knows what an NFT is. My mom still doesn't, but the what has been well defined. It's in the vernacular. I think NFT was Merriam-Webster's word of the year or something. So that is like having that like live in culture the way that it is right now is exciting, because that means we all get to go, as we continue down these paths, we get to really fucking dig into the why, and the why is the most exciting part of all of this. The idea that you can, on Audius, the end state of Audius is you investing value with attention into an ecosystem that you then gain ownership in and governance over, so that we can't change the algorithm on you. We can't remove, we cannot categorically remove a song because we don't like the lyrical content, like the way that Tipper Gore basically took NWA off the shelves. but if the community decides that that needs to happen, then it can. That is that concept is so foreign to almost everybody that bought NFTs, I'll say. Like the idea that the broader idea of decentralization is what got me into this, and the more I see people kind of getting pilled on the why, the more, the why being like, this is just a more fair internet. And the internet right now is deeply unfair, largely unhealthy. The idea that we can help improve something that people use every day without thinking about it, and make them use it and help them use it every day to their own benefit and the benefit of civilization at large, that's going to be the cool part. That's going to be the one that I think we all hang our hats on, tell our kids about.
I also can't imagine a world where these other emergent technologies like AI come about and we don't build in the safeguards that Web3 can potentially afford in the sense of provenance and ownership in a public ledger. In my mind, I might be a little bit kind of overreactionary about it, but the way that AI has been evolving, I don't see a world where digital rights exists in the way that it does today, right? How do you account for AI models pulling in inputs and being able to track that into a black box where no one can tell what percentage is used from any type of source material? And the potential of Web3 could be a potential solution to that. So I like to move away from Web3 as what the conversation was around the hype cycle, which is the panacea, the future of everything, to one piece of the equation of what the future of the internet could look like in let's say the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, attribution is only getting more important. That's a good point, and I think that's where the end state of music lives with all of this. And now visual arts is having basically the same existential crisis that music had around the launch of Napster, right? And I think that current streaming is a Band-Aid. ASCAP and BMI found $40,000 that they on the desk of somebody because my artist moved and the address like they got a return check for $40,000. So it's definitely an imperfect system still. But that's the most the irrevocable attribution of IP is where we need to get with this because it's not getting easier.
Yeah, spent a lot of my career working around DDEX, so.
There you go.
Yeah, lots of pain. But yeah, when I think about on-chain media, what I'm kind of more broadly thinking about is time-stamped pieces of internet culture. There's so much content on the internet that we have no idea who created it. We have no idea where it came from. Part of the mystery of that is kind of amazing, but at the same time, I don't think it's the future. And I think that the emotional connection that people make with collecting media from artists, as fans, it's, once you get over that barrier of having a wallet and maybe getting some crypto into your wallet and start collecting things, it feels amazing. And it feels really fun, and it's really hard not to just become a complete evangelist for it once you start getting into it. So yeah, maybe I'm selling it too much here.
Yeah, I haven't gotten this excited talking about it for a while, so I'm really happy to be here because I don't know, it's just been a rough year. But a really good example is the provenance of the word fleek. That comes from an Instagram video by a black teenager that has never ever been compensated for her contributions to culture, and it became a ubiquitous word. Everybody knows what that word means. Twitter generally wouldn't exist without the contributions of black creators, and we just don't talk about it because there's no system, there's literally no way to establish provenance of these things that become huge cultural touch points. Disney can do it, but individuals like us can't yet, and that I think is so exciting. So thanks for bringing that up.
Of course, mint first.
Yeah.
Then distribute. That's, yeah.
I think we're coming a little bit to the close. If anyone has any questions that you want to ask each other, I know I've begged you already, but I'm happy to throw in my final question and perhaps open it up to some questions out in the audience. One that I just think is good, maybe optimism, seeing towards the future. I think there's probably people in the audience, be it creators or business owners or future platform owners, thinking about where to go from here. Maybe you can take it from a couple angles, but as someone either starting out today who hasn't been involved, or someone who's just made it through the last hype cycle, picking up their sticks and starting, where do you see some advice, maybe words of wisdom after you guys have been through what you've been through in the companies and working where you've been?
I mean, I would just say put it on chain. Put something on chain. Just try it out. See like what happens. Once you start putting something out there and you see people minting it, that you don't know their wallet, you don't know who they are, like that validation, like whenever I speak to creators, it's like, you know, they get validation from like, you know, so many plays on Spotify, so many plays on SoundCloud or whatever. But then like when they actually see like an ENS that's like paid money to collect their thing, like that feels totally different. So I would say just try it out, put something out there and see kind of what resonates with both existing Web3 audience and maybe your own existing fans as well.
I mean, yeah, I'm just going to use it as an opportunity to plug. Go download the Audius app. They have Wi-Fi here. You can put the Audius app on your phone in 2 minutes, less than that. Go to the training page, listen to some music. You'll actually find that you're earning ownership of the platform that you're using by doing so. You'll start earning tokens as a reward. And yeah, and then like hopefully that informs, I mean, that's the best way to create, that's probably the easiest way to create a crypto wallet right now. Just go to Audius, just download Audius, start listening to music. And then you are a participant in the burgeoning world of Web3 music.
Yeah, I think my advice would be, maybe to the artists, like, as I said earlier, just do something that feels authentic and aligned with your vision for your art. And if it feels like Web3 is a place where you can do that, then it's a great place to play around. One, because it's early, it's new, it's this really interesting sandbox of experimentation, and you can see it through a number of projects that artists have done before that are really exciting. And when it works, and when that fan can, collect the NFT or get the PO app, unlock redeemables, have the experience with the artist directly, then it's almost like magic. And being able to create that experience is really fun. And then for maybe the artist team, it's building familiarity, building a fluency in the technology. So ideally we talk about this world where Web3 becomes a lot more intuitive, and it feels more like this e-commerce experience potentially to onboard people. But there's always going to be those elements that are a little bit more nuanced, right? Like allow list strategies and layer ones versus layer twos, and all the types of kind of technical nuance that are important to understand if you're going to build something in the space. So yeah, if you're an artist team or someone who's supporting artists, I think it's good to have that understanding early, just like people who understood what made a good social video during the Vine era really succeeded when TikTok came. But yeah, go out, have some fun with it.
Cool. I'm going to take the maybe platform angle, because I sense that there's a lot of people thinking how to port their business in music or media into the space, and we're joined by some exciting like Guzu and Laura's Sona spaces that are emergent and trying to tackle that question, I think, for the next hype cycle, which is going to be really great, and places that maybe haven't had the head start of Audius. It feels like we've all been kind of running at product market fit, I think, is like this ideal goal that like I think everyone on this stage has had the luck of being in the right place at the right time and building something really beautiful and essential to some community. But as you're getting started in that, maybe from like 0 to 100, especially during this time, I think we're really lucky, and also sometimes cursed, we say, to be in a time when really your community wants to give you so much advice and so much feedback, and really like at no point in history I feel like have those circuits been so close. And it's definitely been like formative at Foundation that we've been blessed with people who want to come forward and explain and talk to you. And even if it's 5 people instead of 500,000 that are kind of knocking down your door telling you what they want and how they want to see this future, that you kind of get deep with them. And I think user research and like this kind of compatibility and conversation has never been more important, especially with something as like equitable as Web3. So that's really been exciting for us. I'll take a quick second. I know I didn't mention Laura, who wanted to be here today, but Sona, her project, is an incredible new Web3 music cusp answer, and she's working with Toki Monster. Everyone should check them out as well. And I think there might be time for questions. I don't know. Maybe someone from the organizational side can tell us. But if there's any questions or thoughts coming out, we're here for you.
Thank you, Prima Pro and Guzu, for having us.
Yeah. Specifically, Arnau and Alvaro, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Alvaro.
I mean, when I say this is the first time I've gotten like really excited about this in quite a while, unfortunately. Like the big picture stuff, like it's cool to be able to toss around these ideas with people that are as committed as we are and as I am. So thank you.
Amazing. Well, let's do it again. Thank you.
We have one question here. I don't know if we can...
Hey.
Sure.
Hello. Thank you for a great talk. I have a question for the Sora. It's a great project. What do you think about step to the layer 2 with Sora? Is a step that you want to do in the future, or you want to stay in the layer 1?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to a site that we launched a couple of weeks ago called zora.energy. And there's some information there about what we're doing around layer 2.
I was going to say, like, I think the question at large across is not if, but when, because there's just so much innovation in this space. But as a platform like Foundation, which actually began on a layer 2 and had to move over to Ethereum due to the demands of the community, they were sensing like the market was there, the excitement was there. Ethereum just had like a builder, developer kind of world that meant more movement. We've been very careful in considering like moving back or how to add it back. And I think a lot of platforms are experimenting with it now, and we're really lucky to have just so much like thought leadership and sharing and transfer of that idea. So it's fun, I think, especially right now, to see where it's going to evolve and prepare for that next cycle. But I think everyone was also cautious to say, oh, they're going to jump into something new just because you have to, or you know, it might be good. And seeing like the proof in the pudding, I think, in an American expression is kind of needed.
It's L2 summer. We're kicking off L2 summer.
Yeah. We aren't a music NFT issuance company, nor are we a marketplace, but we have been streaming on-chain music on L2s since the beginning, mostly because to do the volume of transactions that we have to do, Ethereum was never really tenable. So we never made a big deal about it because I don't think it was necessary that our users weren't asking us to, you know, take a stance on it, mostly because I don't think they understand that we're built on a blockchain. But our partnership with Solana has allowed us to do millions of transactions a day, and it's been super, super helpful. So I don't have a horse in the race necessarily outside of Audius, but it does feel like Solana has been, I'll just say Solana's been a great partner that's allowed us to do everything that we're doing now, including like a effortless wrapping mechanism, and the Phantom wallet's fantastic too. So it's been good for us.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see, I think, like the pressures that come to Ethereum builders versus L2 builders and how they're tackling like the unique like problem sets. Mm-hmm. But music and like lighter media, I guess, is the kind of phrase, definitely benefits from like lower transactions and costs on the whole.
I also should specify that I'm not referring to Solana as an L2, but rather an L1 that has facilitated the volume that we needed. Didn't want to put them in the L2 corner.
No, but it's been interesting to see, I think, as well, like, even when you start to think about value systems around music, too, which I, just having worked in the music industry prior, like, really felt misaligned with, say, what is going to a museum across the street and paying this amount of money for that experience, or like public art versus music, which like has kind of struggled through all these systems in the long form. And I think you were saying before, like maybe hasn't solved for us now. Like sadly, it could have been a more seamless world if we'd all been helped by music's like infrastructure prior. But I think that's a large reason we're all here today, is like trying to bring that motivation through, and L2s have that opportunity as much as like I think maybe you could see the reverse happen, right? What is a future in which people do understand paying a high value for music, and what is that new language like?
And I think that's so important in also that is iterated in a regulatory capacity too. Like these things allow the world to be a better place. Whether there's just so many antiquated perceptions being placed on this technology that has that's just so unprecedented that I think music will be one of the things that, and music and art and creativity, these things that are universally appreciated. I think from a regulatory perspective, these are going to be the things that are like really leading the charge in terms of explaining why this is a social benefit. Especially now that we're seeing kids like just using social tech in a very unhealthy way. Like, I don't know. This is extremely tangential, but I do think music is going to be what kicks down the door on people understanding that this is like a very good thing. Music and art generally.
I would agree in the sense that music has the opportunity to be at the forefront of adoption of Web3 because of how it permeates culture in a way that maybe other media is not as prevalent, right? Like the idea that there's tens of thousands of people collecting NFTs in their more traditional format of PFPs or JPEGs or visual artwork is a little bit of an anomaly if you think about it. Like how many people were art collectors prior to the NFT movement? It's very, very small subset of people, and now you see, you know, tens of thousands of people who are, or hundreds of thousands of people interacting with NFTs. With music, you have the opportunity to scale that into the millions and millions of people who you know, consume music, but also maybe have experiences with music in other ways, like via ticketing or fan clubs, or you know, the number of other ways that music culture exists today.
Yeah, I like to say that music is the sort of like smaller, younger brother of like the media industries, and it kind of as that position kind of gets picked on and bullied, be it, you know, from I think the internet kind of e-com moment from iTunes media and like these sort of like MP3 purchasing to streaming to all these like things that I guess like video had to eventually encompass, or gaming, not kind of going bravely into, but seeing music kind of fall and have to feel itself and pick itself up amongst that rubble. I sense that Web3 couldn't do that with music, and maybe everyone else can follow behind. Visual arts had like a head start for sure, but yeah, hopefully like the more regular day-to-day experience, I think, for music's very promising. Was there another question? Yeah.
Hello, hello. Okay. My name is Mark Moglin. Hi. This is kind of a question directed toward Eric, but I would like to hear you know, everyone's opinion on it. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter over the past, I don't know, several months to a year related to creator payouts, ongoing royalty fees on OpenSea. It's changed like a million times recently. So I wonder if you can speak to that and what what has led to the various decisions in all those phases, and where you guys at now, and just, yeah, to the larger panel, you know, what's the view on creator fees and royalty fees on the secondary market? Thank you so much.
Yeah, great question. You know, OpenSea has always wanted to defend creator fees, you know, full stop. And I think something that maybe a lot of people don't realize is that OpenSea was the first platform to actually implement the concept of a creator fee to NFTs. It wasn't something inherently built into NFTs or smart contracts. So the challenge with creator fees, and something that, you know, people learned maybe the tough way, is that it's enforced on the platform level. It's not built into the smart contract. So there's standards that can be built into the smart contract that tell you what the creator fee should be, but it's ultimately the platform that has to enforce it or to honor it. Unfortunately, where the market went and a number of other competitors, it was a race to the bottom, and it put pressure on the creator fee. And we've always wanted to make sure that artists and creators are seeing that value. So we've put together a solution in the interim, which is working with a number of the other larger platforms and putting in what we call an operator filter, which is essentially if you do a project and it has the operator filter built into the smart contract, it'll block marketplaces that don't enforce the creator fee, and in return, OpenSea, Blur, a number of other large marketplaces will enforce the creator fee. So this is we think is the best solution for now, and then hopefully into the future we can all kind of collaborate on something where creator fees can become that standard practice within the space, because it's incredibly valuable to artists, as you can imagine. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, a creator fee essentially is a percentage of every subsequent secondary sale of the NFT that goes back to the original author of the NFT. So it's essentially a royalty back to the original creator.
It's probably like, I think right after provenance and attribution, like the most important or most like earth-rattling innovation of NFTs. And it's a good question to focus on. I think like it's still, I think Eric calls out like quite young of a market and understanding of standards. I think you can see that variance at Foundation. It's like, I think 10% has become this like meta over the last few years, 10%, but it's only maybe 18 months or 24 months old of like a concept before, and even now it's evolving every day, like PFP markets versus music markets versus different media formats have different royalty understandings or abilities, but yeah, it's super crucial, and I think it's very soon to say like where it'll go in the long run.
That was the thing that, the light bulb moment for me back in like 2016, 2017 was somebody explained, I was advising a very small startup that was doing event ticketing, and they were like, yeah, you could sell, like the artist could make as much money selling 30 tickets as they could 300 if they change hands 10 times or whatever. The idea of like, or that money, that 10% goes to a charity or whatever. Just the idea of being able to monetize the secondary, tertiary markets is pretty much like, I think it's one of the most crucial parts of the DNA of this space.
Yeah, it's a revolutionary concept within NFTs, and it's something that has driven the longevity and sustainability of projects. So when the whole creator fee wars, if you would call them that, happened recently, it really caused a lot of fear in the space that there wouldn't be enforcement of the creator fee. And OpenSea has always wanted to be on the side of the creator, in the sense that if we can enforce the creator fee and be competitive, we want to do that. And we think we found a solution that works for now, and constantly talking to both the creator community but also the other marketplaces on how do we make sure that this is a component of what we're building towards in the future, because it's incredibly valuable.
I think we're being cut off.
Yeah, we have to stop now, but maybe we can continue to speak. We'll be around, and yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on such an interesting hour, and I have a little reward for you guys. We have free beer at the canteen, and we will also be having some presentations and or startup contest downstairs. So I invite you to check out those right now downstairs. So thank you so much. Everybody loves